I felt like I'd seen most of the films I'd seen that deal with the experiences of World War II on both sides of the picture. It was very serious, and while I've always loved those films and been really affected by them, and they've changed me, I feel like we're going to have to retell these stories and keep reminding each other and other people what happened and what not to do in the future. Then we have to find new and more inventive ways of doing it, and I think that's why I chose to add lightness and a bit more comedy and sort of change up the way that we tell those stories. But also, I was really happy with the way the character turned out. It was more fun for me to play a more of a buffoon version of him, even though he probably was a bit of a buffoon. But it's as an imaginary Hitler conjured from the mind of a boy is way more fun than me actually trying to play the actual guy. Yeah, well, we have to start with Roman, who plays Jojo. He's an incredible kid. He's absolutely dream and a sweetheart, and very, very sensitive, which is all the qualities that I think if you're trying to humanize, someone on the German side during the war, you have to find actors that actually have those qualities, and he does. He has it in spades. He's just an absolutely wonderful person. And then all the rest of the cast, obviously, their experience and the history of what they've done speaks for itself.
The script was so fantastic. It was really it's unusual to read a script and have such a unique perspective and just a really different story. I was really struck by that, and I was a big fan of Taika's. I knew him a little bit just from kind of the whole Marvel world, and we had some friends in common. And then I'd heard about this script that was out there that was just supposed to be so extraordinary, and it was exceptional, and that's what actually drew me to this film was the script. And I think the film is really so touching and there's such humanity in it. It felt like if anybody could make this film, it would be Taika, because he's incredibly sensitive and soulful, and I think he uses humor as a way to really draw in the audience so that we can actually have a moment of reflection. It's really just incredibly clever, and I hope audiences love it as much as we do.
Very much. Thank you, Eileen. Good? You having a good night? Yeah, really good.
Well, I'm very happy that he was my first director, obviously. He taught me a lot of things like life and energy and scripts, and the way he directs is so interesting, and his humor is so unique and clever. And I'm very happy that he was my first director. Well, it's creative, it's unique. There's a bit of comedy, there's a lot of serious and sadness, and it's all-rounded interesting and shows a different side of the war. I felt very fortunate because they helped me to act and they taught me, and without them I would have been like standing there like that. So I'm very.
Well, as Taika himself says, he's seen a lot of war movies. He's seen a lot of war movies, actually, funnily enough, from the sort of child's point of view from the Allies side, but less so from the German side of things. And I think, Taika's got an amazing kind of childlike spirit anyway, and I think he taps into that childlike sort of wonderment and naivety. And I think he could really get into the brain of this young boy who is been conditioned, if you like, by adults to have these kind of these sort of sickening Nazi beliefs, and the journey of this boy in a kind of growing up and realizing the sort of error of his ways is a really beautiful, brave, funny, and I think ultimately very emotional story. I was really dazzled with what he did. Well, I think there's an unfortunate truth, which is that stories about prejudice and about groupthink and about ignorance are always relevant. I mean, it's a sad state of sort of human affairs. And yes, there's been a more recent rise of sort of, far right thinking and populism and, if you like, fascistic, people, particularly across Europe. But I think it's always an ongoing thing. And I think this is a story to me which is a kind of constant reminder of just the sort of common humanity of people, and we can it's so easy to sort of become stuck in our own little bubbles, left or right, and I think this is a useful reminder of sort of, empathizing with other people, seeing other people for who they are. I think it's a really heartening and sadly always relevant tale that needs to be told. You know what, I'm a long-standing fan of not just Taika, but of kind of satirical comedy that plays with big ideas and does it in a funny way. And I think, he's tapping it to me into a tradition of movies mocking and satirizing Hitler and fascism right back to the war itself with the great dictator Chaplin's film. There's a great classic, To Be or Not to Be, which is playful, famously, of course, The Producers with Mel Brooks. And I think there's a sort of long-standing tradition of using satire to undermine these people, because there's one thing that fascists and dictators hate, and it's being laughed at. They can't bear it because it undermines the one thing they have, which is fear. And I think when you sort of dismantle that, it makes you incredibly powerful. It's very exciting.